This could make the White Sox a completely different franchise.
I might be the happiest guy in the city.
In this case, they came to him.
Why not sell the team right now?
So I immediately start calling people.
Who wouldn't want that deal?
That would be a cool spot for a baseball stadium.
Big Chicago sports news just coming out, and we got to break it down for you. Reinsdorf has agreed to sell the team to Justin Ishbia, but the deal is not going to happen right away, White Sox fans. So let's get into the details about how this happened with a man who pretty much predicted that this was going to happen a few months ago. I'm sitting down with John Greenberg of The Athletic, who has been writing about this for months and months. John, welcome to The Takeaway. Great to have you here.
Oh, thanks for having me, Alex. I will say I did predict this was going to happen. We'll take away the pretty much.
Straight up. So you have been on this story for months. Of course, White Sox fans have been thinking about the future of the team. There's been the sell the team chance for years in the stands. How did this deal come together, and what's in it?
So when I first heard about this in February, I'd heard from someone who's like an investor, his family's an investor, original like minority partners, and he said someone's wants to buy out our shares. So I immediately started calling people. I actually thought it was a different Chicago billionaire, and I found out who it was. Then I started calling people in baseball. Then I looped in Dan Hayes, who used to write here for NBC Sports Chicago, who covers the Twins. And because Justin Ishbia was rumored to buy the Twins, he started going in. We had everyone kind of going through it. And I had heard through my reporting that when he was interested in buying the Twins, since Justin Ishbia had like a kind of a minority stake when the Reinsdorfs were buying out partners, right, I think in 2021, that the Reinsdorf said, well, if you're going to buy the Twins, why would you like to invest more in the White Sox? So that's where it happened. That's where it came about. It wasn't a thing of, I had heard that people said that, Ishbia had been bothering Reinsdorf about this for years, but really in this case, they came to him. And that's kind of how
Reinsdorfs came to Ishbia.
Yeah, because they, there was rumors before. We had reported a story of Dave Stewart's group, which is affiliated with Nashville, coming to Jerry, and he agreed to kind of hear them out, but they didn't have the money. We know Justin Ishbia has the money.
So break it down a little bit as well for maybe people who aren't so into the sports business aspect of things. A lot of people may think that Jerry Reinsdorf just owns all of the White Sox, and that's not the case. Without getting too far into the percentages, about how many people are involved, roughly speaking, and how did first Justin come into the picture and then now become a bigger part of the picture?
There was a huge group of minority investors, and many of them have been with Jerry since 1981. Yeah. When he bought the team, he led a group to buy the team for about $19 to $20 million, and this is in 81. Some of these people would just put in like $200,000 at the time, right? $250,000.
Which is still a lot of money in 1981.
Which was a lot of money, right? Exactly. Yeah. So he got these people in, and these people have no voice, no role. Yeah. They were lucky to get in the Bards room, and buy tickets and get parking. That's basically what they had. So it was a big group. And then what happened was around 2021, Reinsdorf's sons created a group to buy out some of these older minority partners. Now, the valuation they gave them for the franchise was very low. I had heard it was $900 million or thereabouts. And so some people did it. Some of these people were very old and wanted to kind of get their affairs in order.
Still a fantastic investment since 1981.
Yeah, but the smarter people were like, this is like half of what it's worth.
Okay.
Right? So they said no.
Okay.
But so that's how he got his foot in the door, him and his brother Matt, through Michael Reinsdorf and his brother Jonathan. So they do that. And then this time around, they offered $1.8 billion or thereabouts. That's a pretty good valuation considering the team has some debt, which we can get into. Mm-hmm. But, that's where it came in here. And some of the majority of the people sold. Now, some people stuck around, especially people that were younger, maybe people that inherited their parents' stakes or people that, bought in later. They stuck around because they know when the full sale would go through that they would get a bigger valuation.
But they didn't know to whom that full sale would be or when that would happen until maybe in the last couple of months, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. This is so they knew someone was offering $1.8 billion, right? And then I reported pretty closely after that it was Ishbia.
Yeah.
Because there were rumors and people thought it might be him, but they didn't know. And then I found out through some people that it was, and I reported it, and then everyone knew, obviously. So
how did Ishbia first even get into the minority shareholder plot?
So he got in through, he helped, some of these people helped finance Michael and Jonathan Reinsdorf to buy out the minority partners a few years ago.
So that's how he entered the chat, so to speak?
Yes, they created a group like, something more complicated than I
gotcha.
Financially, but he got some investors. And I know some other people whose names aren't even out there that are big, wealthy Chicagoans who helped them finance this because Jerry couldn't do it. This had to be something separate from him. And you asked about Jerry. People think Jerry's the majority. He's not. He owned, I think someone estimated it around 20%. I think he's estimated around 20-some percent.
I think you pointed out, he's never actually said the real number.
He would always say, right, I'm never going to say the real number. No one knows how much I owe.
Yeah.
That was his big shtick.
Yeah.
And he created this. When he created this kind of group, I think it took a lot of, from what people said, that he was in real estate syndication.
Yeah.
And I think it took that kind of identity. So basically the White Sox is split up into like two different corporations inside. And he's the part of it. There's one that controls it and the one that's a minority corporation. He's the guy on the controlling part.
Yes.
So that's why he's always had the rights to do whatever he wants. No one could like vote him out. There's no such thing as a coup. He set it up so he would be in charge. And it used to be him and Eddie Einhorn.
Right.
And then it was just, who passed away. And then it was just Jerry. So Jerry's the guy in charge. And the statement said specifically, he is in charge of the day-to-day responsibilities of running the club. I don't know if that's something I'd brag about since they're coming off 121 loss season.
Yeah. We're going to talk about what this means for the stadium potential, for the city in just a second. First, though, who is Justin Ishbia? Like, who is this guy that has now come in and is on track to own the White Sox as early as 2029?
So Justin Ishbia is 47, graduated from Michigan State. His brother went to Michigan State. His brother obviously became very famous, Matt Ishbia, with one T, because he bought the Suns. And Justin was part of that deal. He was kind of like...
These guys are not from Chicago.
No, they're from Detroit. Yeah. They're from suburban Detroit, Michigan State guys. Matt played basketball there. Justin's a baseball guy. And they got... The family got really wealthy with the real estate... Or not real estate, I'm sorry.
Mortgage.
A mortgage business. And from what I'm reading is, during the big crash... They didn't have any bad assets, and they used their money to buy up a lot of people's assets, and they became billionaires. A good business became great. Mm-hmm. Justin is the partner for Shore Capital Partners, and that's a Chicago private equity firm that controls, from what I heard, like $11 billion in assets. He's very successful on his own. Plus, he owns a big stake in the family's real estate business. He's worth anywhere from $4 to $5 billion. He would be, in Chicago, especially the wealthiest owner. The Wirtz family obviously had their liquor business they sold, but he would definitely be the wealthiest owner on his own merits.
So Ricketts family together probably beats them out. But at this point, what are we really talking about?
Well, when the Ricketts family, and it's important to remember, like, they got the money through, like, Joe Ricketts put money aside for his kids to come up with a business together.
Okay.
Joe Ricketts he doesn't put any money into this team. This is all from, they eat what they kill, basically.
Yeah.
Like, whatever money they make from the Cubs, as we've seen, they're not crazy spenders. This makes the White Sox, this could make the White Sox a completely different franchise. It really had to have someone.
Is that transformational in your mind? It could be
100%. I mean, depending on, hopefully Justin has learned the right lessons from what's happened in Phoenix with his brother throwing money at the problems with free agents isn't always the way to work. Now, could you throw a little more money than the White Sox have at free agents? Like, the big joke.
Hard not to.
It's hard not to because, like, the biggest free agent contract they've given out is Andrew Benintendi for $75 million. Justin Ishbia's estate he's building in Winnetka is supposedly valued at like $80 million. So when the owner's house is bigger than the biggest free agent, and listen, don't get me wrong, if you ask me what I'd rather have, Andrew Benintendi
or a really great house,
or a really great house on Lake Michigan, I'm going to go with the really great house.
Okay. Justin can take the control of the team as early as 2029. He can flat out buy the team as early as 2034. Do we have any inkling as to what he wants to do with the team, with the stadium, and with his presence in the city once he does take control?
Yeah, those are great points. Like, I think it's probably good news for Chris Getz, who also lives in Winnetka and is a Michigan and is a Michigan guy. Okay. Justin actually started at Michigan. People don't know that. He actually went his freshman year there. So I would assume this is good news for
Chris Getz, the GM of the White Sox.
He's the GM of the White Sox. He used to play here. He played at Michigan. He's building this team from the ground up again.
Yeah, again.
And so, you would hope. People have asked, like, is he going to immediately start signing free agents? I think that would be pretty dumb. I think what he needs, if Justin's going to start putting in money now, which the statement said he would for paying down debt and other things, I think the stadium thing's number one. I think to figure out what they're going to do with the stadium. Now that you have someone who's wealthy enough to actually put his own money in, so you don't have to rely on public money. Would they want a little public money for infrastructure? Sure. But for him to invest in it, listen, we talk about the Ricketts family and, what they've done with the Cubs and, what that franchise has done for that family is it's given them a lot more standing in the world, right? I mean, they are political players. They have to own a team that's why the wealthy people, there's a lot better investments than owning a team. You don't get a lot of cash out of it. When you sell it eventually, whatever. Most of these people don't want to sell it. They want to keep it in their family.
Right.
What you get is more standing. You become
it's prestige.
It's prestige. You become a public figure. And like you said, no one knew who Justin Ishbia was before this, right? So like this makes him a big player in the third biggest market in the country. So I think it's great for him. I think it's great for the city. It makes him a big deal, but it also like puts a target on him. I would, sometimes you'd be hesitant to want to have that kind of criticism. I mean, look how much criticism Jerry Reinsdorf gets because he owns two teams. Tom Ricketts won a World Series, and people are sick of him because he doesn't spend enough.
Important distinction, though, that you mentioned. We were talking about the stadiums. The White Sox don't own Rate Field. That is a huge distinction between a lot of other stadiums. We obviously had the fire, the big news. They're going to go to the 78. They're going to own that stadium.
Right.
The Sox don't own a stadium.
No, and it's and their lease was so good. People that did own stadiums were like jealous of it.
Yes.
But think about this: Ricketts bought the Cubs for like $900 million with Wrigley Field.
Right.
Now he had to put a lot of money into Wrigley Field to fix it up. Almost as much as building a new stadium anyway.
Pretty close.
But you get that ownership. They don't have that. But there's a lot of options on the table for him. Maybe not a ton. I don't, because the 78's now kind of claimed. Can they wedge two stadiums in there?
62 acres. You do the math.
That's
I don't
tough.
know.
I don't think that's you're losing part. I mean,
the Fire don't want that. I'm sure.
No, they don't want another stadium there. And like, I don't think the aldermen would want it. I've heard they don't. Neighbors wouldn't want two stadiums there. Parking wise, what are you gonna do with parking? The people will be parked. Where are you gonna put people? So I don't know if that's the case. I personally think, and maybe I'm in the minority, that guaranteed rate field is not quite as bad as they've made it out to be. I think if you put money into the area around it, where there's all these parking lots, where there's plenty of place, you could make some deals down 35th, to do more, to create more development for sure. And I know people that own the land that would love it. So
it's not apples to apples, but clearly they're doing something similar with the Bulls and the Hawks down on Madison, that huge 1901 project that they're doing.
Absolutely. You're 100% right. So I think there's more space on 35th Street to really do more. I just think Jerry Reinsdorf has never really done enough down there. I don't think because the state owned the land. Could Justin buy the stadium from the state? The state would probably love to get rid of it.
The state needs money.
The state needs money. The state would love to get rid of it. Give it a good deal. Do some work down there. I think it would be a win-win. I don't know where else you're going to build a new baseball stadium in Chicago. I remember someone telling me years ago, like, hey, when the Bears move, why don't we just put a baseball stadium where Soldier Field is? I don't think that would happen. That there's a lot of that's yellow tape.
A lot of red tape. That's a lot of hoops you got to.
Yeah, a lot of hoops you got to jump through, but that would be cool. That would be a cool spot for a baseball stadium.
I think the wind is bad at Wrigley.
I don't know. Can you imagine that?
When it comes to, so you think Ishbia buying the White Sox makes it more, not less likely they stay in Chicago?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see the logic of building an $80 million home in Chicago, buying a team in Chicago, and then moving it to Nashville.
Okay.
Because that would be like, he has young kids too. I just don't, that wouldn't make a lot of sense to me.
Okay.
I also think, for one, I do think Jerry wants, as much as sometimes people think Jerry has kind of contempt for his fans, I do think Jerry does want to keep the team in Chicago for his legacy. Yeah. I do think that's important. And three, I got a statement from Ishbia. I mean, I found someone who could give me a statement from him. And he said, I love Chicago. I love baseball. This marries my two. Marries my two. Now, that's not.
It's not a promise.
Not a promise, but I think it's promising.
It's pretty good. In the very unscientific poll that we took of White Sox fans yesterday, when we went out to Rate Field before they played the Tigers, Christian Farr was the reporter out there.
Good hustle, Christian.
Yes, and he asked, I don't know how many people in total, but all four that we ended up airing said, why not sell the team right now? Is there a good answer to that question?
No, I mean, I do wonder if there's some kind of tax implications of this graduated sale.
Okay.
Now, when I first heard about this in February, one of my league sources told me he didn't, like, nothing was written yet, but he thought it was going to be like what David Blitzer is doing in Cleveland. Mm-hmm. He bought into the team, and in 2022, they announced he'd have like a 6-year window to buy.
Okay.
So I don't know if this is something that's become popular.
Yeah.
I do.
The structure.
And I do think for Justin's case, this is good. At least maybe not so good for 2034, but like, let's say 2020, let's say 2029 it happens, right? There's going to be the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement in baseball, is expiring after the 2026 season.
Okay.
So 2027, there's going to be some kind of labor stoppage. That's what everyone thinks.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to get on board when the owners are the bad guys. I would rather come in when the dust settles. You have a new CBA. You have an understanding of what you're going to spend, what it's going to what the new rules are going to be, because there will be some new rules. So in that sense, I would say after 2027, 2028, 29 is when I would want to take over.
And the stadium lease is up in 29.
Yes, exactly.
So that's an interesting confluence of time.
Right. And it's good that if he can get on board now and focus on the stadium stuff.
Yeah.
Before he actually takes over for Jerry, since Jerry's not going to be around, and let's be honest, the people don't want to work with Jerry anymore. I'm not saying work with him, but Jerry got money from the state once.
That happened once already.
Right. And when he went back down to Springfield, it was a very cold reaction. Yeah. And I remember talking to someone affiliated politically who said he's trying to run the 1989 playbook and it's not working.
I want to be very crystal clear on the record. I don't want this to happen. What happens if Jerry Reinsdorf dies before 2029?
That's the question, because in the statement it said, I think it said something like under no circumstances or something before 2029 will this happen. Well, Jerry is indestructible. He smokes cigars. He's lived 89. It's
heck
great.
Of a life.
Heck of a life. An American, real American success
Absolutely.
Story. Well, then, his shares would go to his kids. His kids, I would assume, do not want to run the team forever. I think,
and Jerry's been on the record telling his kids to sell the team after.
Right. And this is, I think this is really, a lot of this is estate planning for Jerry.
Okay.
So I think if he does pass away, then his kids will work out a deal.
Got it.
Whether they're going to work out something to the end result is selling to Justin Ishbia. No matter what it said, is this might not happen. This is the end result. It's what I said in February. It's what every single person told me.
Why we're doing this episode about this.
Right, exactly. Yeah. This is going to happen.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't it happen? Right. This is a great deal for White Sox fans. I know the Ishbias don't have a great name right now because of what's happening in Phoenix. Guess what? In Chicago, we don't care.
Yeah, that's true.
This would be great to have.
And they've only had the Suns for a couple of years. It's been.
Yeah, and you know what? One thing I'll say about the Ishbias in Phoenix, if you look, and this is a minor detail, but they created a value meal for fans at games where they had $2 drinks, $2 popcorn, everything was very cheap. It was popcorn, hot dogs, pretzels, water, and soda at games for $2, $3. Go look. I did a story where I went and wrote down every price of a White Sox game. They're selling, waters for $6.50, $7. I think that kind of stuff would really endear him to White Sox fans. And I think no one's done that in Chicago. No one's dreamed of selling food at cheaper prices.
If you could get me into a beautiful brand new stadium with $2 waters and $2 hot dogs and $4 beers or whatever it ends up being, I might be the happiest guy in the city.
Absolutely.
Who wouldn't want that deal?
And listen, in Phoenix, they renovated the arena there.
Yeah.
They renovated their downtown arena that they've had forever. I think they've made it a lot. I was there before the renovation, but I think they've made it a lot nicer. So that's why I think, I wouldn't be surprised if they do stay at guaranteed rate and just there's so much room to renovate. It's off the train. I know it's a pain for people like me that live in Deerfield to get down there, but who cares? It's a pain to get anywhere in Chicago.
That's the truth.
Right. Unless they do it at the park that dead ends into my house, it's going to be a pain.
It's going to be tough too. Okay. Great conversation. Thank you so much for breaking down the reporting and how we got here. What is your one big takeaway from this plan for Jerry to sell the team?
My big takeaway. Wow. One is, I guess, that he really does want to hold on as long as he can. And, Jerry has said that along. He loves going to the park. He really he thinks he can put this team in a better place. I think everyone else thinks the only person that can fix the White Sox is a new owner. And I'm pretty optimistic that Justin Ishbia is going to be the guy. It's going to be it's exciting a little bit that there's going to be this change. And I think people have waited for it for a long time. And I think Sox fans, even if they want it done right now, should be happy that some positive developments are happening.
John, thanks for the time. Really appreciate you stopping by.
Anytime, Alex.
When news breaks like this, you always wonder, how do these deals get done? What's the conversation that leads to these major transactions happening that can really transform a team and even part of a city? Well, John essentially just brought us as close as we could possibly get to that room as to how Justin entered the chat, so to speak, what Jerry thought about the deal, and what the exit ramp looks like here for the first time in a Reinsdorf ownership group since 1981. It's just incredible to think that White Sox fans, as long as we have been on this train dealing with bad team after bad team, some good moments in there, this is the first transformative moment we could actually see to change this team, potentially the stadium, and get some wins. Also, nice fun fact that we might get some cheaper concessions in it. I hope that idea that they've got down in Phoenix with the Suns would come to Chicago. But I just really enjoyed talking to John about what this means for the team, for the city. And I am so hopeful at the end of this, not only that we're going to have a team that stays in Chicago, that hopefully is in a brand new, beautiful stadium or highly renovated stadium, but actually get some freaking wins on the field. That would be the most exciting. That's my takeaway. I want to see yours, White Sox fans. Leave them in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed that conversation, here are some other episodes of The Takeaway. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want to listen on the go, check us out on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.